Good evening, everyone. Uh, my name is Nikki Zimmerman. I'm the president of this, I'm proud president of this illustrious branch. Miss Lenore, you want to start recording? We're already recording, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. And I would like to call this special meeting to order. Our mission, the Fairfax County NAACP is a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization whose mission is to achieve equity, political rights, and social inclusion by advancing policies and practices that expand human and civil rights, eliminate discrimination, and accelerate the well-being, educational, and economic security of Black people and all people of color. Next slide, please. At this time, I will pass the mic, so to speak, to our Religious Affairs Committee, Ms. Pam Dister, and our newly appointed newly selected interim co-chair, Ms. Pat Jackson.
Okay. I have a prayer.
Thank you.
Dear God, grant us the strength to create a world where everyone has equal opportunities to thrive and succeed. Help us break down barriers that prevent individuals from reaching their full potential. May we work together to ensure fairness and justice for all, advocating for policies and practices that promote equality in all aspects of life. Thank you for guiding us towards a more inclusive society where every person has a chance to flourish and contribute their unique gifts. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Next slide, please. President's report. Well, I don't have much to report on. We have a few um, motions to make this evening, and we will go ahead and get those out of the way. One motion is for a state resolution. Ms. Lenore, can you pull that up? We have to vote on this I'm sorry, not a motion. No, we do have to make a motion. Or is it just a vote, Ms. Lenore?
It will be a vote.
Okay. So as you all know, we have our state convention in October 24th to the October 26th to the 28th. And every year, state gives the branch different, they give all the local branches an opportunity to submit resolutions for the Virginia State Conference. And this year, we will be submitting a resolution dealing with voter suppression. So, Ms. Lenore, if you don't mind reading this off. You're muted.
Thank you. Resolution of the Fairfax County Branch of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People to address voter suppression resulting from the erroneous removal of voters from the rolls. Whereas the mission of the NAACP, the nation's oldest grassroots civil rights organization, is to ensure the political, educational, social, and economic equality of all rights for all persons and to eliminate race-based discrimination. Whereas the NAACP is committed to achieving equity, political rights, and social inclusion by advancing policies and practices that eliminate discrimination and promote well-being, education, and economic security for all people. Whereas Governor Glenn Youngkin has participated in voter suppression disguised as election integrity by signing an executive order in 2024 requiring state election officials to remove individuals from voter rolls if their Department of Motor Vehicle Records did not confirm U.S. citizenship during the 90-day quiet period that prohibits systematic voter removal from a federal election. And whereas this executive order led to the wrongful removal of some naturalized citizens as well as citizens who were incorrectly listed in the DMV records. Whereas Governor Youngkin vetoed the 2025 bill passed by the Virginia Senate, which aimed to strengthen protection against voter roll purges, legislation that was introduced in response to his 2024 executive order. Whereas the actions of Youngkin's administration resulted in the suspension of citizens' votes at a time when it was not permitted, violating their voting rights and preventing them from correcting DMV records in time to vote as regular voters. Therefore, be it resolved that the members of the Fairfax County branch of the NAACP call on the Governor of Virginia and the Virginia Assembly to, 1, prohibit the systematic removal of voters during the federal 90-day quiet period before elections, and extend the response time for individuals flagged for potential removal from 14 to 28 days, allowing citizens sufficient time to correct errors that are no fault of their own. Adopted this day by the Fairfax County branch of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. President Zimmerman, I so move that this resolution be adopted by the branch.
Do I have a second?
Second.
That's Gershon.
Yep.
Okay, all in favor of approving this resolution to be sent to state? Sign of aye.
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 All
Aye.
opposed, nay. Any abstains? The ayes have it. Thank you. At this point, what's going to happen is I'm going to email this to the resolutions committee for state and mail out the original hard copy. We have 2 more motions, but I'll let Secretary O'Brien and Assistant Secretary Liggenbaugh do those. That is what I have for now. Yes, that's all I have for now. Thank you. Oh, I believe, oh my goodness. Okay, no, that's all I have for now. Secretary O'Brien.
So, Madam President, I will first take up the resolution of our representation at the state conference coming up in October. You just heard a resolution we're putting forward to be reviewed by that conference. We have 3 delegates who have volunteered to go to the conference to represent the Fairfax County branch. Those 3 are Ms. Karen Camblin, who is a member of the state board, but also a member of our branch, a longtime member. We have Rachel Luckenbaugh, who is our assistant secretary, and we have Ms. Takesha Smith Butler, who is a member of our criminal justice committee. And I would put before the body the ratification of those 3 delegates to represent the Fairfax County branch. Madam President, can you call for a vote?
Do we have a second?
Second.
That's Miss Evelyn.
Yes, ma'am.
All in favor of approving the slate of delegates to go to the Virginia State Conference 2025 convention and serve as delegates on behalf of the Fairfax County NAACP, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Any abstains? The ayes have it.
And Madam President, the only other administrative matter we have to come before the body is the approval of the August minutes from our general membership meeting, which were distributed in the last announcement of this meeting. So I would entertain a motion and a second for the approval of those minutes.
Madam
President.
President Zimmerman, this is Laura Simmons. I move that we adopt the minutes from the August meeting.
All in favor of adopting the minutes from
We have
August?
a
We have a second.
I'll second.
Yep. Less.
We
have less.
Less.
All in favor of adopting the minutes from August meeting, say aye.
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 All opposed, nay. Any abstains? The ayes have it.
And back to you, Madam President.
Thank you. Next slide, please. So our treasurer and assistant treasurer were not able to attend tonight's meeting, but all of our accounts are in
Sorry,
good. Oh,
I'm here, but you are
okay, I'm
correct.
sorry. Thank you, Monique.
No problem. Good evening. All of our accounts are in good standing. Nothing further to report at this time.
Thank you. Next slide, please. Before we move to committee reports, we have Ms. Deborah Graves from the Gum Springs Community Center Advisory Board. Do we have any updates from the board?
No, Madam President, we just want to say that we had an outstanding fundraising golf tournament. We were raising funds to bring back football to Gum Springs. We had started football since 1976, and last year we didn't have football. So we were able to fundraise for some funds, and there was a lot of fun golfing. So that's about the only thing we had to report as a non, that we were able to raise some funds for our football team. So we now have 3 football teams at Gum Springs.
What weight class?
We have ankle biters, we have junior varsity and varsity.
And the ankle biters are what age?
Probably 7 through 9.
Okay.
The
And
babies.
JV?
JV is 6th and 7th graders. And the other ones, I think, are 8th, going into rising 9th graders. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do they go by weight class or grade or
It's
age?
weight. It's by weight.
Weight class? Okay.
Yes, but they do it by weight. And
Okay.
then our cheerleaders, we have 44 cheerleaders this year.
Wow.
It's a lot of cheerleaders. Yeah.
Do
So
you all have, I'm sorry, go ahead, please.
no, go ahead.
Do you all have flyers of like recruitment flyers that we can post?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Please send it to our communications
Sure.
and we can
Thank
spread the
you.
word. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have another at-large member, Mr. Anthony Walker from Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity. He's also the lead for their mentorship program. Mr. Walker, do you have anything?
Nothing for the group today, but thank you very much for allowing me to be here, part of this great historic organization. Thank you.
Do you have any flyers promoting your program that we can share?
Not at this time, but we're about to, we have actually our scholarship committee that are getting together this upcoming week to start getting together the criteria and also introducing some new scholarships that we're going to present to our foundation. So when that information comes out, we will share that. I know a couple of big events are coming up because we're going to launch our scholarship on about November 1st. I know Alpha Street Baptist Church is having their HBCU College Festival, which we will have a table there. And at the same time, we will again share the information with all of the schools within the Northern Virginia area to include Fauquier County.
Okay. Make sure, I know you're on our scholarship committee too. Make sure that you all are collaborating and do things together for 2026.
Definitely.
Thank you. We also have Emily. Emily, I'm going to butcher your last name, so I'm not going to even bother. Fairfax County Federation of Teachers, anything new?
Right. No, nothing to report right now. Just glad to be around and be a part of it. So thanks for having me.
Thank you. And also with the scholarship committee, Tony and our scholarship committee start, communicating with Emily because they have an outstanding book program and they gave us some great books for our college day. So let's make sure we keep the conversation going and relationship build with FCFT and our youth. Thank you. Now we will move on to our anybody else representing any other organizations that can highlight some of the work that you all are doing now. Okay. All right, so we will move on to budget. then criminal justice, followed by education.
Madam President, Les Shockley here. I have nothing to report this evening.
Thank you. Criminal justice. Criminal justice.
Madam President, I think there was an email. Matt wasn't able to join the general membership meeting today.
Okay, thank you. Education.
Hi, everyone. I have a couple of updates. First and most important, on December 15th, we will have our second State of the Schools event. That is the same event that we had last year in November. We're going to do that again. We're going to review some of the issues that we went over with Dr. Reed last year. It's a conversation between us and Dr. Reed, and we don't have any other people there. She doesn't bring anybody else. It's just us and her, and we talk about issues that are important to the branch. So we're going to do that again. And I imagine that this year we'll also be talking about a lot of the different funding concerns that we have regarding federal funding for our programs that impact our kids, and curricular decisions that might have to be made or that are being made to protect our children from the attack on public education by the federal government and their support of students. So toward that end, the Trump administration has said that they are going to be withholding, Title IX funds from TJ because of same-sex bathroom stuff. So just some issues like that. So that's something to be followed. It's possible that after this Virginia state election, that something in the state, the change in state leadership could impact that, but that remains to be seen. Another important development is that America 250 Civics Coalition, which is an organization made up of America First, which is a long history of white supremacy that's like gone before World War I in the United States. It was America First. Turning Point USA, Hillsdale College, which you may have heard me talk about before, but they create a false information curriculum, revisionist facts. It's a lot like the Daughters of the Confederacy rewriting history to fit a white supremacist agenda. So that organization is going to be rewriting American curriculum for public schools, and that is supposed to be put in place by July for the in time for the 250th anniversary of the United States, the birth of the United States. So that's something to be on the lookout for. I really don't know what our public schools are going to do to protect us from that. That's definitely something we're going to be talking about with Dr. Reed, and just look for that. That's federal information, so look for that in your newspapers and in your media sources, because that is happening. Also, another threat that I'm not certain that this is going to happen, but the Virginia Department of Ed is saying that it's going to take FCPS gifted monies to fund the Turning Point programs, the ones that I just mentioned. So again, that is not something I'm certain is going to happen. But that's also on the horizons. The monies have to come from someplace. They're going to definitely be having to come from some other program that is that we fund with our tax money. So that's what I have for you so far.
Fair and affordable housing, followed by Freedom Fund.
Mary Payton, chair of the Affordable Housing, Fair and Affordable Housing Committee. I have three items to highlight this month. One is we're working on the policy area. Counties considering several policies. One that we're supporting or introducing or trying to get them to include is they're doing policies on the mobile home communities. There are about 1,700 families in the county live in mobile homes. And when these communities are bought by a developer, the people who live there often have to abandon their homes and they get no compensation for them. And we're pushing for market rate compensation for homes that are taken over by a developer. Second, we're pushing for, in the policy plan on development, we're pushing for the county to allow for a form of community development where they actually interview neighbors in redevelopment areas and low-income communities about what kind of development they think would benefit that community, and to try to go out and make that kind of development happen rather than bringing in large developers that are basically going to gentrify areas of low-income communities. Another area we're working in is fair housing still, although that's been pretty well decimated at the federal level. The Metropolitan Council of Governments is still pursuing it in terms of getting all the jurisdictions, Maryland, DC, and Virginia in the metropolitan area to report on their progress on some fair housing goals they made a couple of years ago. And I'm one of several NAACP people on the COG committee. There's executive committee members from Montgomery, Arlington, Prince George's, and one of the other counties that are on this team that's convened by COG to help shape how these reports are made so that they're useful and intelligible. And we continue to meet and advise them on that. The third thing is with oftentimes, even when affordable housing projects are approved and ready to build, because they're being built throughout the county, they're also often opposed by NIMBY groups from subdivisions who don't want any affordable housing in their neighborhood. And some of these groups get pretty ugly. And we're joining with some other groups. We've been involved in several of these public hearings and train people to go to public hearings and defend the affordable housing, and bring forward people who want to live in that affordable housing. And now we're joining with some other groups to kind of put together a guidebook for churches and different places that want to build affordable housing, but they're faced with a lot of community opposition. So we're going to try to incorporate some of the lessons learned from a number of incidents, a number of cases into a guidebook, and use that to help other groups who want to continue building affordable housing. Thanks.
Thank you, Mary. Freedom Fund and then legal redress.
Hello, good evening, everyone. I wanted to share that the 2025 Sneaker Ball, wear your best sneakers to the event. We might even have a contest to show to judge who has the best female sneakers, male sneakers, but that is on the 18th. It is sold out. We have a growing waiting list. So with that lesson learned, next year we are going to move to a larger venue, maybe Westfield, maybe Falls Church, or maybe even Reston. But the theme for next year, get ready, it is going to be a masquerade ball. Everyone that I've spoken to is very excited, and we look forward to having a successful event this year, and even better one in 2026. Thank you.
My internet is going in and out. Did you mention what we're doing next year? Just to let everybody know.
Yes, I mentioned that we are going to have a masquerade ball based on Chandra Rhimes. What was it? Bridgerton. Yeah. So it's going to be fabulous. You really get to dress up next year. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
If you would like to be considered to put on the waiting list, please put your email address in the chat. As seats become available, we may reach out to you and give you all of an hour to purchase your ticket before we move on to the next person. Is that okay with you? Did I say that, Miss Evelyn?
Yes, it's a long waiting list, but yeah, it's worth the try. Please do add your name if you would like to be considered. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Legal redress.
No updates from legal redress this month.
All righty, and membership.
Good evening, everyone. There are also no updates for membership this month.
Okay. Political action.
Good evening. We just have a couple of items that we'd like to discuss. First of all, to let everyone know, early voting is open. You may early vote through November 1st, even on October 13th, which is a holiday. The polls will be open on that date. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us for the What's on Your Ballot community conversation. The recording is available on our YouTube page, and I will add that to the chat. We had some great speakers telling us what's important for all of us to look at in the candidates for the upcoming election. And we also have some postcards that we are writing to our citizens, reminding them about the upcoming election. If you'd like some postcards, please contact me at the email address shown, and I will meet you to give you some of those postcards. And finally, I'd like to share that the state of Virginia is very important. The NAACP is aware of its importance in this upcoming election, and they have provided us with some nonpartisan voter guides, which provide information about the candidates. So I will also put a link to this website in the chat. And if you could save the date, on October 11th, we are planning a meet and greet for the candidates who will be running for House delegate seats. And finally, on October 26th, we are planning a Souls to the Polls event in which we will have food trucks. That's the plan. And for the one day that polls are open in Fairfax County. And that is the end of my report.
I have a question. Sherelle East.
Okay, thank you.
I'm trying, I need to go back a couple of, well, two questions. The positive one is related to the webinar that we just recently had. Was it last week? Am I right? The webinar?
That's correct. You're referring to the What's on Your Ballot?
Yeah. And the notes and the resources that they listed on there, where can I find that?
What I can share with you are the email addresses and contact information for all of our speakers, but they did not provide me with any resources.
Oh, they said they would in the webinar. They put a link within the webinar.
Okay. I'm not certain, but I'll certainly I'll look into that. If you want to include your email address in the chat, I will follow back up with you.
Okay. And the second thing is, can we go back to the turning point? I'm trying to understand, this is the same, is this an organization that the Department of Education and we support?
No.
The
No.
Department of Education?
I mean, this Department of Education, yes. We don't support that. I'm not sure I understand the question. Can you ask the question again?
I'm not trying to understand, is this the same controversial?
Yes.
And we support it?
No, our tax dollars support whatever our Department of Education does. That's what I mean. We don't, the branch certainly doesn't support it. NFCPS does not support it. No right-minded person supports it. However, it is, as we have seen by the vaunting of this character who was just assassinated, we as a nation, including all of our Democratic senators and most of our Congress people, we voted for a day of remembrance for the founder of this organization. Anyway, to answer your question, decidedly no. This branch, me, nobody here, nobody with any sense of anything supports this. However, you know, this is just me speaking, but we are in the full fascistic state. This is the Nazi playbook. We are already here, and this is what's happening to our education from a federal level. Now, how long our how long our local school divisions are able to withstand this, I don't know. Currently, our state Department of Education would be fully on board with this. Certainly, if Winsome Sears wins the governor's seat, she would be fully on board with this, despite being a Black woman. So I'm just saying that obviously we know elections matter, but we don't actually know whether elections matter anymore in the United States of America. So all we can do is hope for the best, go to the polls, hope for the best. And that's what, I mean, but yeah, that is what they're planning on doing.
Okay, we have to move on. Thank you for that, Dr. Hampton. Religious affairs.
Good evening, everyone. Our committee has been building ties with the interfaith community by attending events sponsored by the Virginia Interfaith Center, Communities in Action, and Neighborhood and Community Services. We also plan to attend the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation's prayer breakfast on this coming Sunday. And I invite you to consider serving on the Religious Affairs Committee. We meet on the second Monday of the month at 8:00 p.m. Thank you.
Is it Saturday or Sunday? Because I'm looking at the flyer, it says 27th. Is that Saturday or Sunday?
It's on Saturday.
Okay. And our scholarship committee.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Last but we're not certainly least, I'm going to give everybody a status on the Michelle Lee Scholarship that we are planning for next year. So we believe the application period is going to be open in January of 2026, and we'll probably close it sometime in February 2006. And we are going to award 5 $1,000 scholarships. That's an increase from $500 from last year. And we are making the application more streamlined than it was last year. I believe the last application had 3 questions. We're only going to include one related to IT because that was kind of very special to Michelle Lee's heart. And just some more information about the scholarship, and everything is kind of still in the nascent stage. But if the winner is not chosen by College Day for whatever reason, we will hold I'm sorry, if the winner has been chosen, but they haven't been admitted into college by the time we give out the scholarship, we will hold the funds until the admission letter is provided. And the reason why that's the case is because this year we're not going to have it in June. We're actually going to have it maybe late March. We're shooting for March the 28th at Gum Springs Community Centers. We had it last year. So giving out a scholarship around March, you have students that apply for it that may not have an admission letter into college, but we just going to hold the funds until they provide that admission letter. And we are still going to keep the 3.0 GPA requirement. So if you know anybody that's a senior this year that would be interested in a scholarship, please apply once the scholarship is announced. And the last thing that I want to mention is that we are collecting donations to hopefully sustain and expand the scholarship program for future years. So if you want to contribute, or if you know anybody else that may be interested, they can donate through our website and just specify in their donation when they pay on PayPal that the gift is for the Michelle Lee Scholarship. And that's it for the scholarship committee.
Brandon has a question.
So I do have a question. If you're a student who was admitted to a university, like early action, not early decision, but early action, and you receive that scholarship, but you haven't heard back, in terms of like early action, early action just lets you know. Well, so early action let me know early on that I was in, but it's contingent upon my continued performance, right? So if you have those kids that get the early action, and then so you have the admission already, uh, would you need like a packet from their university, or would you to give them the scholarship, or would you uh or how does that work?
Yeah, Brandon, thank you for the question. I appreciate it. To tell you the truth, I'm not exactly sure. That's a very unique situation. Um, I want to say that because I think that your admission into the university is contingent upon you being in that specific program that you're in. That's probably going to be if you have that letter stating that you are in that program, that's probably going to be sufficient for us. But I'm not exactly sure. I have to bring that to the committee, and we'll make a decision on that before we announce the scholarship application in January of next year. So just kind of hang tight for me, and I'll have more information about that to you shortly.
Um, Make sure, scholarship committee, make sure that you all are communicating with Chair Michelle, because if you're going to open up the scholarship in January and then close it in February, we want to make sure that we have enough time prior to January to put out the notification, for people to be on the lookout for it, in terms of posting on social media that the Michelle Lee Scholarship will open on such and such date, being able to send out the newsletter, um, uh, annotating that. We probably going to need to start doing that in November. I know that Chair Michelle has created a full-page flyer for the scholarship in the souvenir journal for the gala. So let's continue to talk with her about starting to post, save the date, or just to give people a heads up that the scholarship is going to open, and we need a concrete date that the scholarship will be open. So please work with her to not just update that, send out flyers and things, but you all also need to update the jock form.
Yes, we'll do. Actually, we're going to have a lot more concrete information at the next month's meeting. So we'll
Okay.
have all that ironed out and I'll have like a more proper update next month.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, now the moment we have all been waiting for. All been waiting for. I'm so excited. Um, I just don't even know what to say. Um, very rarely are we able to meet our icons, our civil rights icon, in person. Uh, the ones that we're taught about, in school are no longer with us. They paid the ultimate price for the cause. Um, I will tell you, growing up, um, looking at the pictures of the civil rights era, and one picture, well, two pictures that stood out was a picture of a young white girl mugshot. And I always wondered who that young lady was. What did she do? And sometimes you hear about the freedom riders and different movies came out and things like that, but you always wonder about the pictures that you actually see, and you wonder where those folks are. You wonder what they're doing with themselves. We hear about the MLKs, the Medgar Evers, of course, the Rosa Parks. We see and we hear about them in the Black community all the time. Um, but someone is equal to them as Miss Joan Mahal. I'm sorry, I was so nervous. Mulholland. Um, I'm shaking. I'm shaking. Um, and not only did I have emotions when I saw the mugshot picture, but the other picture that I saw growing up was the one in the sit-in. And that is the picture that I've always, you kind of just, you wonder what was going through their minds, because some movies you see, you can't imagine being able just to sit there and maintain your composure while people are yelling at you and throwing things at you and, spitting on you, anything under the sun, filled with hate. You have to just sit there and endure it. And I don't know a lot of people who can do that. And to see the the pictures of this icon, of this legend, just sit there and not fighting for her own people, but fighting for people who look like me. Can you imagine the strength, the love that a person has in their heart to be able to stand shoulder to shoulder to fight for someone who doesn't look like them? And so the first time I met Miss Joan, I met her 3 times in person, and I feel like a celebrity every time I get to say I saw Miss Joan. But the first time was at the African American History Museum. She was there with her sisters, with the Deltas, and I just wanted to touch the hem of her garment because you see our legends and you think that they're 6 feet tall. And when I saw her, I said, so much life. She was 6 feet tall in my eyes. And I took my son to her and I said, ma'am, can my son take a picture with you? And she said, of course. And she put her arm around him, and I still had that picture. And once I joined the branch and got active, our very own Mike O'Brien brought her to a Women's Day program, and I bought my son 2 books, and I touched the hem of her garment again because I had to just touch greatness. And I just thank you for your long suffering, Miss Joan. I thank you for all that you've given to my community and other disadvantaged communities, because you didn't have to do it. You could have walked off. You could have uh, let us deal with our own problems, but you did not. And that level of service, that level of commitment, you can't buy at a store. That level of heart, you just can't buy at a store. So I'm going to hand this over to Mike because my nervousness is getting the best of me. Miss Joan, on behalf of our branch, we love you. Happy belated birthday. I have something to give you. I'm going to give it to Mike to make sure you are a sage. You are a living legend. You are an icon. And thank you for everything that you have done and everything that you and your son continue to do. Without further ado, Mike O'Brien, please take it over.
Well, thank you, President Nikki. What a wonderful, wonderful introduction to our guest speaker this evening. I know that Miss Lenore is working in the background to organize our screens so that we will be face to face, Miss Joan and I. Our plan for this evening, for the rest of the time that we have, is to show a little PowerPoint for me to interview Joan just the way that I did back in her home, starting in 1991, when we began to uncover her story and why it was so important for the broader world to know that. I'm going to, if I may, share my screen, Miss Lenore. I will, if you invite me to do that, I will do it.
You may do so.
There we go.
Well, I want to,
And Joan, you want to go ahead and say a few words? Sure.
yeah, I can always run my mouth, but what I did back in the day was, I did it for all of us, for everybody, just trying to make a better world. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, good. Well, I'll be quiet now.
Oh. Well, I knew you had to answer that wonderful praise that President Nikki gave you um, with a reboot. I think one thing that's important to note, and we'll be seeing it this evening. The plan is to do an interview with Joan for about 15 minutes to show a clip from her son's film called An Ordinary Hero about Joan's civil rights career, particularly about this picture that President Nikki mentioned. With that is Joan right in the center, taking the sugar as if she wasn't sweet enough, as she likes to say, from the hand of one of the white high school students behind her. And we'll see a clip from the film that talks about this, shows footage from this moment, and then we'll
Well, I
take your
want to say
questions.
too, that is the most used sit-in photo in the world, even more than the Greensboro Four. And I think it's the most integrated sit-in, black, white, and our professor is a Native American tribal member. And we didn't have any Asian American students that semester at school, but we did pretty good.
And I think we need to mention that Miss Joan is not only a white woman, but she is a Southern white woman. She's from
Oh, of
Arlington,
course I'm a
Virginia.
Southerner.
There you
Can't you
go.
all tell just listening to me?
She used to call herself a cracker from Georgia. Isn't that right?
That's a compliment. Cracker
Yes,
from
it used to
Georgia.
be.
Yes.
Yes.
But I know some people use that as an insult.
Well, we won't do that tonight. No insults
Thank
tonight.
you.
I wanted to mention, so Joan's story came to light through some research I began to do in the 1990s. And I met her and her family through her five boys in 1977, sorry, the year of Star Wars, as you can tell on some of their shirts. When I was a camp counselor at a summer camp at the local uh, public school in her neighborhood in Arlington, which was also the neighborhood that my parents lived in, and I was living with them at the time. So we became fast friends, and the kids would always tell me, "My mom's in a famous picture. My mom's in a famous picture." And I didn't know what they were talking about, but eventually they pulled out the scrapbook
They
from the
snuck in
closet
my closet to get it, but
without their
kids are
mom
sneaky.
knowing it. But this is the picture that they showed me. And I it put a lot of things together for me because Joan was kind of in my estimation, or my view, something of a hippie lady. She drove a purple VW bus, and she had long braided hair, and she just had some. And if we told you the names of her children, you would understand what I'm talking about. But it put some things together for me, but I didn't understand the significance of that photo at the time in like 77, 78. It was only about 12 or 13 years later when I visited the Martin Luther King Center in Atlanta and went through a room that had many famous photographs from the civil rights movement. And this photo was among them, that it struck me, wait a minute. The last place I saw that was in Joan's living room, and now it's at the Martin Luther King Center. Why is this photograph so important? And if I don't know, and I know the woman in the middle of this photograph, and she hasn't told me, then probably a lot of other people don't know either. So I decided right then that I was going to go back and try and have Joan begin to tell me about her civil rights career, which she had really kind of kept to herself up to that point. And that is how the book We Shall Not Be Moved developed, and ultimately the film about her that her son did, An Ordinary Hero. So this was me and Joan back at that time when we started on the project. We were, look at Nikki's face. We were much younger and much prettier. And you can see the pen in my pocket. So I was ready to take notes. Um, so what we want to do now, and we can transfer back, I can stop sharing the screen for now and transfer back to the one-on-one with me and Miss Joan. Because what we're going to do is kind of try and simulate the Q&A kind of thing that I did with her in the very beginning when I didn't know much about her background and didn't really have that much background on the civil rights movement to begin with. We're not showing the movie yet, Miss Lenore. Please take that down and take us back. There you go. We'll call for the movie when it's time.
But some of my best friends have been AKAs.
Yeah, well, Joan is a Delta, yeah, as that picture showed. Um, so, so Joan, we want to take you back really to the beginning of the discussion, like how, as a young Southern girl, when was it that you discovered the issue of race and the differences between the way the races were living at the time? When did it become into your consciousness?
Well, visited my grandma down in Oconee, Georgia. Now, at that point, it was just a company-owned logging town. And my girlfriend, my playmate every summer, we snuck off and went where we were not supposed to go, down the road through the colored, or black was an insult then, but through the colored section of town. And when folks saw these two little white girls coming down the dirt road, they just made themselves scarce, went probably in their outhouses or back of the house. And that was creepy enough. But then we got to the colored school, and it was a one-room shack. It never had an ounce of paint on it, no glass or screens in the windows, just wooden shutters, no running water, no electricity. Pitiful. The door was ajar. You could see the pot-bellied stove for heat. And I knew out the other end of town was the fanciest building for miles around, a brand new brick school with all the amenities for the white kids. And I knew this was just not right. This was not doing what we learned in Sunday school about treating people the way we want to be treated and ourselves, and loving our neighbor as ourselves. And I knew then that when I had the chance, I would do something to make the South, didn't care about the Yankees, but to make the South the best it could be for everybody. And that came when I was a freshman at Duke University. And the sit-ins got started. And I got involved at the invitation of the students from North Carolina College.
Yes, yes, yes. So tell us a little bit about the some of those first sit-ins that you participated in. So those North Carolina college students, the first sit-in that made a lot of splash was February 1st of 1960. And by April, you were on the front lines. Is that not right?
Well, I don't know front lines, but our Presbyterian chaplain told us that next week there would be some students from North Carolina College coming out to explain to us, talk to us about the demonstrations. And we had to keep it quiet so the police didn't show up, or the rowdies, or that type of thing, or we get locked out of the building by the administration. And they came and spoke quite well about the demonstrations in both moral and legal terms. And then, shock and awe, they invited us to join them. So few of us did. And first it led to the picket line, then it led to the lunch counter, then to the jail cell, then to the courtroom, and ultimately it went all the way to the Supreme Court, which said that demonstrating was freedom of speech.
That's right. And your name was on part of that docket because you had
Yeah.
participated in one of those demonstrations in North Carolina.
Well,
Right?
yeah, and I was involved with the Glen Echo demonstrations, since I'd always gone out to Glen Echo in Maryland, big treat of the summer. I knew where to buy the tickets, so the Howard students hung back, and I went in and bought the tickets. And when I came back out of the park, they came forward, grabbed the tickets, and dashed straight through the gate to the merry-go-round. And that case was combined with the Durham sit-in cases on appeal of the Supreme Court. So, hey, I've been to the Supreme Court twice.
Look at that. Look at that. So, yeah, so you were in Durham and at Duke and participated in sit-ins. Apparently, the Duke administrators were not all that happy with you, and so you all parted company after your first year there.
Yeah, and I heard just a few years ago that the only reason we weren't expelled for being in the sit-ins was the university professors said they'd go on strike if they kicked us out.
How about that? So you then came back to Northern Virginia and started making a ruckus up here, right?
Well, yeah, we had a few sit-ins. The NCC students asked me to go up to Howard and find out what was happening, and it turned out there was a group there planning sit-ins. And since I knew a bit about sit-ins, they invited me to join them. and they were planning to go to Arlington, out to Cherrydale. So I joined them, and we desegregated the eating places in Northern Virginia because the prosecuting attorney in Arlington said he wasn't going to enforce the state law that said not only the people who sat together, but whoever enabled them, like the lunch counter managers or store owners, they could be arrested too. And once that threat was removed, they served us.
Right. So it was thanks to those early sit-ins that you participated in the summer of 1960 that we got quickly integrated lunch counters, not just in Arlington, but then Fairfax followed and other jurisdictions.
Yeah, all the surrounding jurisdictions said, well, if Arlington's not going to enforce the law, we aren't either. And that took care of eateries in Northern Virginia.
Right. And then you turned your attention to Glen Echo, as you mentioned. I think there's a new film out about that called There's No Back to Ain't No Back to a Merry-Go-Round. If people want to look that up, it's a new film about the summer of
Yeah, I think there's
1960.
actually 2 films about Glen Echo, but I can't think what the other one's called.
Okay. But you were definitely a big part of that. At the same time, you were working for a U.S. senator, right? Claire Engel of California. You're working in his office. So during the week, you're down on Capitol Hill, and on the weekends, you're going out to Glen Echo.
Right.
Fascinating. But then came the Freedom Rides, and you were by then associating yourself with this group called NAAG. Do you want to talk about NAAG a little bit?
Well, NAG was the Howard University's civil rights kids, and they're the ones who had the sit-ins in Northern Virginia and out to Glen Echo. And some of the well, one of our members was initially on the Freedom Rides, and then after they got stopped in Alabama, other sit-in students kept the Freedom Rides going, and 3 of our group went down right away. And then I got a phone call from one of them saying, Joan, we're trapped in the church in Montgomery. I can't talk, but send more riders. Their conversations were limited to 2 or 3 minutes on the phone. And so I got 5 of us together, including my buddy for life, Stokely Carmichael, aka Kwame Ture. And we flew to New Orleans and then took the Illinois Central train headed toward Chicago and hopped off in Jackson, Mississippi, and walked into one of the waiting rooms, don't remember which, and took a seat. And Captain Ray came in and said, move on and move out. Y'all hear me? You gonna do it? You're under arrest. And so it was off to the city jail and the courtroom and then the county jail. And it got so crowded that they took the prisoners on death row up at Parchment and moved them out doing field work and put us on death row, trying to frighten us. But man, it didn't frighten me. I knew their game, and it was roomier, cleaner, and just my food was so much better without that added protein from the bugs on the floor. And it was free room and board for the summer because I'd already been accepted at Tougaloo. And so I stayed in jail and got out on appeal at the last chance to do it before I went to out to campus at Tougaloo College.
Tougaloo College, the historically black college, started in 1869, right after the Civil War. And many people don't know that name, but they need to because it's quite an institution.
Yeah. And I integrated that school the same year that Ruby Bridges integrated the schools in New Orleans.
1961. So, that's right.
Yep.
So, right. So we're up to August, September of 1961. You're enrolled at Tougaloo. There's a story about how your high school, Annandale High School, would not send your transcripts to that colored
To
school.
that college. No, they weren't going to send them to that school.
Right.
And I called Tougaloo and told them about that school, and they said, well, they understood what it meant, and they said, well, we'll accept you on your Duke transcripts. And so then, fast forward 62 years, my son Loki had me on a Zoom with the superintendent of, or maybe it was a podcast,
Alexandria.
superintendent of Alexandria City Schools. And Loki said, tell him about your transcript. So I did. He said, well, I'll call my friend who's superintendent of Fairfax County Schools. I'll get them sent. So only 62 and a half years late, my high school transcripts arrived at Tougaloo College. Fancy that.
Finally, right? You're legit. Well, I think that kind of brings us up to where we want to get to the film now to talk about the Jackson movement that you became part of and to show some clips from your most famous event of the civil rights movement, which was
My
the Jackson
good trouble
Movement.
moment. Yeah.
Your good trouble moment. So, Miss Lenore, if you will then now tee up the presentation and we'll take it from there. By the end of her first year at Tougaloo, Joan was accepted on campus. She was getting to become part of the fabric of the campus life. She leaves and goes back home. Her parents had attempted to reconcile with her and frankly were dangling a European vacation in front of her as a way of getting her away from the South. And hopefully, once they got her out of the South, hopefully they would, keep her out of the South. So she accepted this this little junket off to Europe for that summer, and apparently had a grand time. But when it was time to go back to school, she went right back to Tougaloo in the fall of 1962. And interestingly, right at that point, there was a new movement developing. John Salter, one of the professors on campus, had begun working with Medgar Evers, the head of the NAACP, to develop a student movement that would eventually rock the foundations of the city of Jackson and the state of Mississippi.
This new movement would explode on May 28, 1963, when John Salter and Medgar Evers took the Jackson boycott to the next level. In all, 14 people would participate in what would become one of the most famous and violent sit-ins of the civil rights movement.
I've heard at various times from the reporter, the cameraman, and the son of one of the reporters that this was the most terrifying, frightening event they covered in the civil rights movement. Now, guess they weren't in Birmingham or Montgomery with the Freedom Riders, but they got around, and this to them was the worst. Everyone believed that the students would be immediately arrested and carted off to jail. And so no one thought that that was going to cause much of a ruckus. They really had their hopes pinned on the integrated group of demonstrators outside the store, down the street. When the three individuals, Perlina Lewis, Memphis Norman, and Ann Moody, sat down at the white counter, nothing happened. The police would not come into the store and arrest the sit-in students because of a Supreme Court decision the week or so before saying they could not come in of their own initiative. They had to be invited by the store manager. This was a case that grew out of the Durham, North Carolina sit-ins, and my name was one of the ones on the decision. Now, Joan, interestingly, was not supposed to be part of this demonstration. She was what was called a spotter, and she was supposed to spot the demonstration, the protests going on down the street. But the picket line was arrested more or less immediately instead of lasting a while. So Lois and I phoned in a report on that, and then they would, Medgar's office would know to get the lawyers and bonds money together. And then it was sort of like, okay, what do we do now? This was a block or so up the street. And he said, well, let's go check on what's happening at Woolworth.
They had no idea that this environment had turned volatile until they walked in the store. And it was right at that moment that a thug, a former police officer, had come in, racist, virulent segregationist, came in and pulled Memphis Norman, the one black male, off of his stool, knocked him onto the floor, and began kicking him mercilessly. Memphis, curled up into a ball and was trying to protect himself in the way that he had been taught. And luckily, this thug, Benny Oliver was his name, had on just tennis shoes. If he had had on any other type of shoe, Memphis would have been severely hurt. In this case, there was still blood running out of his nose, running out of his ear.
Then an undercover policeman came up and arrested both of the guys, the attacker and Memphis, probably breach of peace.
When we had seen Memphis kicked in the head, he had blood coming out his nose and ears, which is not a scratch. Anything could have happened to anybody.
Meanwhile, I was back at the NAACP offices in the Masonic Temple when a quick, hurried call came that a mob was gathering in the Woolworth store, that Memphis Norman had been pulled off his stool and savagely kicked, then arrested.
Medgar and John, others in the office, had to make the decision, do we call it off and try to rescue the last two people who were there? And then if we didn't call it off, how could we leave just two people at that counter? Would we have volunteers to go in?
So I set out to head for the Woolworth store. Medgar wanted to come, and I persuaded him not to, because I said, you're a marked man. And the way this thing is developing, you could get killed.
Joan was then stuck in the situation wondering what's going to happen next. Ann Moody had been pulled off of her stool and thrown against some of the counters. Pearlina Lewis was also pulled from the stool and was down on her knees right by the counter when the police officer came on the scene. Both of them rushed back to the counter, and so that the demonstration would continue. Joan sees all this and realizes, first of all, she is beginning to communicate with the demonstrator. She sees a man with a knife walk by Ann Moody, and she calls out, Annie, he's got a knife. And all of a sudden she's identified with the people at the counter. Who's this white girl talking to those black girls, So all of a sudden she realizes that she's in danger.
But then I sat down. That's when I became a problem.
She walked through that mob in the Woolworth store. And they realized, of course, immediately where she stood.
She joins Pearlina and Annie at the counter, the first white to join the demonstration. And at this, the crowd is just incensed. They become like hornets. They start screaming at her, you black bitch, you white nigger, you traitor, communist.
Yelling, screaming, cursing, laughing, a lot of loud laughter, dirty jokes being cracked, racist remarks. Anytime people went to the counter, though, it was like the crowd, the mob, really turned into an animal, just an angry roar when they realized someone else was not afraid of them.
One of the white guys who was in league with Benny Oliver grabs Joan and pulls her off the stool. Another one grabs Annie Mooney and pulls her off and drags them to the back of the store and out the door. Joan, it's interesting, she kept her composure, and once outside of the store, what we see is this white, tough guy pulling on a white Southern girl. And the police arrest the guy and let Joan go back in the store. So He is arrested and carted off, and she's let to go back in the store. Annie is standing right there at the entrance. Somewhere she's lost her shoes, but they're both okay. And they both decided they're safer if they get back to Perlina and back to the counter. So that's what they do. They make their way back through a throng of a couple of hundred people by this point, back to the counter.
I went immediately to the lunch counter to sit with Joan and Annie Moody. A white man, mistaking me identity-wise and mission-wise, yelled out, "Hit him hard, boy. Hit him." But then I sat down with them, and the crowd was quiet for just one moment, and I heard my name mentioned by somebody. And then they moved in on me.
When Salter joined, the crowd turned violent. He was knocked in the back of his head with brass knuckles. There was a student who put his cigarette out on the back of Salter's neck. There were several cigarette, and you can still see it to this day. If you look on the back of his neck, he has scars in the shape of a cigarette. They threw pepper and water mixture into his eyes.
My guideline was, don't let the sons of bitches see you suffer. Meanwhile, I was chain smoking my Pall Malls if I could, see.
I talked to the police outside. There were about 40, 50 police outside the store who were letting whites in. And I talked to them about, what's happening. Why don't you come in and stop it? And they would laugh and say, it's your business, you folks started it. But they certainly knew about all the violence inside. You could see it through the windows.
They just got so hostile that this white man was sitting in. Things were just going out of control. And at that point, Joan has said that she believed that they were not going to make it out alive. None of them were going to make it out alive.
I think I was beyond fear. I think I was driven by determination to carry this through. And by the time I sat at the counter a while, it was like an out-of-body experience that the real me had left the body, and it was just a shell there. And the real me was sort of up above, like a guardian angel, letting me know what was happening and protecting me to some extent. But the real essence of me, the important part, was already out of there.
So there we were, and this went on for probably, it had started at 11, got violent around 11:30. We got there before 12, something like that. It ended around 2:30. By that time, there were really several hundred people in the Woolworth store, and a great number of them outside. I learned later that a huge crowd outside extended down the sidewalk right around the street corner.
The spotters did observe the FBI doing its normal task when people were threatened with death, very carefully observing.
I understand the FBI was there somewhere, and the undercover police and the State Sovereignty Commission and Citizens Council. Everybody was there in their role, recording it, egging it on.
So I'd say 90% of the thugs in the store were young, but they were the results of what would be years of white Citizens Council racial indoctrination. Some of it conveyed even by lesson plans, which cooperative teachers introduced into curriculums.
The kids were a product of their environment, but they were also the tools of the power structure it was using to accomplish its ends.
What eventually happens at the sit-in is that the president of Tougaloo College realizes what's going on, comes down to Woolworths, tries to get the police to enter the store to shut it down. They refuse, tries to get the manager of the store to shut the store. He refuses, finally gets on the phone with the national office of Woolworths, and they advised the store manager to shut the store down. So after nearly 3 hours of this intensity, at a little after 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the manager comes down, turns out all the lights in the store, and tells everybody to leave.
I think the best way to put it is that it was a very interesting afternoon, to put it mildly. But we had no idea of the implications. One immediate implication was that instead of just a few hundred people coming to a mass meeting, there were almost 1,000.
And it's the first time that Black Jackson really rises up and says, we're going to support this movement. And it's a major turning point in the movement in Jackson. The following 2 weeks turn into demonstration after demonstration and begin to open up the city of Jackson. Becomes more and more tense situation with the mayor and the city council.
Okay, Miss Lenore, that's enough. There we go. Generally, at this point, everybody applauds for what Joan has done. Let's send her some hearts and kisses through the reaction mode. Or we can open it up and everybody clap, whatever makes sense. But what an incredible perseverance and willingness to take whatever it was going to take. Joan, you have said, and what I've read by others, is that the reason the civil rights movement succeeded is that you all were willing to die for your beliefs, and the other side wasn't. What would you say to that?
True. One word covers it. True.
True. Okay. Do you have anything more you want to say about that event before we open it up for questions?
No, let's just have the questions.
Okay, if anybody has questions, I don't see any in the chat, but Miss Lenore is going to moderate that.
Les has his hand raised.
Okay.
Yes.
Les?
Yes. Well, I'm really, this is really special, Ms. Mulholland. I'm older than 60, so I remember this, and I learned something tonight because I did not know that SNCC had white members. I remember the days of Stokely Carmichael, and always thought of it as a Black Power movement. So I learned something tonight. The question I have for you is, you see what's going on in our current political environment in this country and how it's affecting everyone, both Black and white, all races today. Are you surprised that there hasn't been more resistance to what's going on, considering what you, freedom riders, and many people in the South were willing to give their lives back in the 50s and 60s, whereas what we're seeing today is fairly passive resistance?
Well, history repeats itself, so things are happening again. But I wish there was more action going against what's happening. But yeah, I'm a little surprised there's not more. But it's the resistance. Well, things are not operating quite the same way. History's repeating itself, but it's not the same, the way it's being done.
Yeah.
One thing I do say, Les,
thank you.
one thing I do say, Les, is that we're all in Mississippi now.
Yeah.
What Mississippi went through in the 60s with the takeover of the Democratic Party by white supremacists, that's what's happening now across the country.
Yep.
So we're all
Like Nina
Mississippians
Simone
now.
said, Mississippi goddamn.
Amen. Amen.
Mike, we do have
heard
one question, and that is how old Joan was in that picture. How old were you at that time?
Well, let's see, 61. I was about 20, I guess.
No, 63, Joan. You were 22.
Oh, 63. Yep. Okay, I was 22.
Yeah. And it's amazing. By that point, she had already been through her son says she has participated in over 50 sit-ins. So you just heard about a
And
few of them.
demonstrations.
And demonstrations and picketing. Yeah, right.
But I've only been on death row once.
At Parchman, right? After the Freedom
Right.
Rides. Right.
I was arrested in Baton Rouge once, twice in Durham. Where else was I arrested? Mike, help me remember.
You were not arrested, but you were taken in for questioning at Rock Hill, South Carolina.
Yeah.
I'm not
But
sure about Glen Echo.
no, I want nothing in Glen Echo, just marching back and forth.
Yeah. Enough. You've had enough. You were in there enough. Yeah, I see Marquise has a question.
Yeah, hi, good evening, Ms. Mulholland. I really want to appreciate and thank you so much for all of the work that you have done, gone through, your experience. Like your story tonight was just so impactful and brave. And I just really want to say thank you directly. But like, and also building off of Les's point, one thing I want to add to the conversation, I'm glad you actually brought it up, was that, you know, today's resistance is different. Like there are not going to be any sit-in counters today. You know, like there's no place for people to do the same type of work that you did, but people today are continuing to resist. And with the advent of technology and the way to spread the word globally and to just get that, like that's what your efforts actually brought about, was the freedom for us to continue to build communities in alternative and new ways. And so I really want to say thank you so much for opening that doorway, because you know during your time period you actually had to be there on site and make people feel your presence. And now we have ways because of that to continue to make the world feel our presence. And I really encourage everybody to understand like our new way of fighting and resisting is really building off of that spirit that you all implanted within our DNA. So thank you so much.
You're most welcome. And everybody remember to vote.
Yes.
When the elections come, vote.
Yes, and I do want to point out, Joan, that if I may, that just because this is an NAACP meeting, this is what Joan went through. It was all a sponsored event by the Mississippi and Jackson NAACP. Medgar Evers was the head of the NAACP in Mississippi. This happened in Jackson, where he was based. 2 weeks later, he was assassinated. As John Salter said, he was a marked man. This sit-in kind of created an uprising in Jackson that tragically led to his death. So this is a Mississippi story. This is an NAACP story as well. Diane, I see you have your hand raised.
Yes, thanks, Mike. Ms. Mulholland, obviously you're an idol of mine, as I've been very wrapped up since a teenager in the civil rights movement and very fascinated by it. When you're speaking, definitely seeing parallels too to current day. How do you have advice for especially white people to get involved and put themselves on the line? Are there, maybe there aren't, well, there are protests, but what can we do? What can we do to really push this further, to speak and let people know we are serious and that we stand up for our brothers and sisters, all of us, each other, in every group? What do you suggest for today?
Oh my. I wish I really knew what to do, but financial support where it's needed, appear publicly together, you know, all of us together make a real kaleidoscope of color, and speak up and speak out, I guess.
Perfect. That
That's
makes
not
sense.
very helpful, I know, but
No, but we have to do that.
but I don't really know what's going to change it, but voting's a good start, and speaking up and speaking out.
Definitely.
Yes.
Thank you.
The midterms are coming, and we really need to send a message at that point. Sujatha, I know you had your hand up earlier too. Sorry.
I have just a thought. You were saying, things are different now. They really are. They're fundamentally, structurally different. And as Marquise was saying, the ways of fighting are different. It's not, you're not waiting for newspaper. And also our news is adulterated. So our news does not reflect the news. The news is fake. There are millions and millions and millions of people who are ingesting false stories, and you, with AI, you can totally change who was there, who wasn't there. So we're in a completely different fighting situation. But at the same time, we, like, at the time in the 60s, you had a federal government that was really kind of, on some level at least, better than now, on side. You had a president who really was on side with the civil rights movement, at least, to whatever degree that you could say that he was on side, versus right now. Right now feels very much like the Third Reich kind of situation, as opposed to at that time. So we have we have so many different kinds of, it's very confounding. It's very confounding. You don't know how to fight. I don't know how to fight a situation like this where the news is fake. You can't convince people. I was sitting at the polls the other day, and people were talking about the EU being a communist country. They thought that it should break up into several different, the people manning the Republican tent, it should break up into several different countries because the EU is a communist country. If they believe that because they've been told this by the news, European Union, Soviet Union, it's because they're hearing this stuff and they don't know. And so now we're in this situation where it's so bad, and you don't have the news, and you don't have the federal government, and you have AI. Do you have any thoughts on that? I don't even notice if there's a question in there.
No, I really don't know what to say at this point. Mike might have a better take on things.
Yeah,
Well,
Mike,
I'll just
what do you
say
think?
to that, Sujatha, I'll just say that that whole statement that we're all in Mississippi now applies to that as well. The news was censored in Mississippi. It was very one-sided, particularly in Jackson. They only got the right-wing side of things, the segregationist side of things. It was very similar. We would do well to study Mississippi, and the fact that first of all, the NAACP and SNCC, of which Joan was a member. You were right
I was a
about that,
member of
Liz.
both.
Yes. There were organizations that were formed in the wake of the uprising of the sit-ins that really began to change things. SNCC was really on the forefront of that. But yes, they were, of course, were branded as a radical left-wing communist. They were, I don't know how much they were attempted to be shut down, but as we're hearing, a lot of our institutions are trying to be shut down now. But yeah, there are a lot of similarities between Mississippi and what's happening at the national level now.
Yeah, I used to work in SNCC and CORE. The more activist groups had a joint office on in Jackson, and it wasn't a good idea for me to be out knocking on doors and handing out leaflets and all, but I could type real good. So I did the office work, the typing and all. And when I was caught up, I'd walk a block or so down the street to Medgar's office and help out in the office work. So the groups were all pretty well united. They had different roles to play. But we all worked together.
And I'll also say, I mean, Joan's sit-in that we just watched kind of was the zenith of the movement. It started much smaller in 1961, with first of all, some picketing of the downtown area, because that's where discrimination was happening. And it just gradually built to a sit-in at a library, which was very quiet, but then it erupted during the trial. I mean, so one thing led to another, and the strategies changed depending on the circumstances. So that I think the message is just try something and then see what works really, and band together with people, like-minded people. And I
And
think
keep
that's
on
what we
keeping on.
can do right now. President Zimmerman has a question or comment.
Both, well, both. Just to hear you say when you finish your work, you walked over to Medgar's office. I mean, just the history that you have in your heart and things that you've been a part of. But my question is, over the years, at least with my generation, they started a tagline, I'm not my ancestors, or they compare the civil rights movement because it was by and large non-violent to, the I guess that the anxiousness and the lack of, I don't want to say lack of patience, but the if you hit me, I will hit you back type of mentality that we have now. Thinking back to where you were in the 60s, you had a lot of organizations that were like-minded. You had the Nation of Islam, you had the organization that you all were a part of, and it kind of morphed from the nonviolent to the Black Panther Party, the Black Liberation Party, and those types of groups. What do you think caused that shift from the nonviolent movement, which what we saw to be effective? What do you think caused people to leave that type of movement and to start kind of getting more into the Black Panther, the Black liberation? Now we have Black Lives Matter that came on the scene and different things like that. What caused that shift from the nonviolent perspective to where we are now for the most part?
I wish I knew so we could go back, but I don't really have a good thought on it. Maybe Mike does.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of that's a deep question, and there are a lot of theories about that, Nikki, and a lot of it was impatience, right? That we're even with the nonviolent, even though we got the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965, something had been unleashed in the Black community that never was expected. That they would begin to rise up and really claim their rights, and there was a pent up feelings about we deserve even better than this. You gave us this, and Johnson was perplexed by that. Having signed the Civil Rights Act of 64 and the Voting Rights Act of 65, and then the LA riots happened the next year. It's like, wait a minute. I think his reaction was, don't these people appreciate what we've done for them? And they're saying, no, that's not enough. We've got you've also, as a white society, done all these other things to us, and we want retribution for all of it. So there definitely was a turn, and even SNCC kicked out its white members at a certain point and told them to go in, but told them to go into the white community and saying the white community is the problem. You should be working in the white community, trying to convert hearts of white people in your community, not strategizing with us in the Black community. So there was even a split within SNCC.
I want to say something about LBJ. He was picked as Kennedy's running mate only because he was a powerful Southern Democrat. And then he became president. And he got the Civil Rights Act passed. And after the March on the Edmund Pettus Bridge and the beatings, he became a hero of mine. He went before a joint session of Congress when that was just about unheard of on TV and described the beatings and said, we must have a Voting Rights Act and we shall overcome. Then he leaned toward the camera and repeated, We shall overcome, the anthem of the civil rights movement. And those 3 words were the death knell of the Southern Democratic Party that propelled him to the presidency. And I've talked to a couple of people who were working at the White House at the time, and he knew exactly what he was doing and what the consequence was going to be. And so for that, he's a hero of mine.
Okay, I see a couple of the questions, and then we're probably going to have to bring it to a close, President Nikki. But Pam, Ella, I see your hand has been up for a while.
Yes, thank you. Okay, this has been really amazing. I guess I want to make a comment and then I'll ask a question. I think to sort of answer, I think what somebody asked earlier, I think to sort of mitigate propaganda that's out there that people just don't know, we just have to keep putting out as much truth out there as possible, right? Because we can't really control the other side and what they're doing in a sense and what people are viewing, but what we can do is that we can keep putting out the truth, hoping that eventually that people's eyes and ears will be open, right? And I know a lot of things have been defunded, but back to another point that Mr. O'Brien made, I think it was Miss Joanne rather that made that, but just keep putting money towards those news outlets or towards those organizations that are putting the truth out there and keep building them up. Keep using manpower. I remember when President Obama was running, that was one thing they changed the way social media was utilized for campaigns, right? They started doing Facebook ads and stuff like that. We just have to keep doing the same thing. And so oh, sorry. I think I muted myself for a second. My question, sorry, was for Ms. Mulholland was, how did you actually it was so dangerous and perilous to be out there, in the 60s. How did you actually survive? Because a lot of the civil rights icons, right, they were murdered. They just didn't make it through. How did you actually get out of harm's way, even though you put yourself in harm's way for a good reason? How did you actually make sure that you were safe? And it's great we're able to hear your story now, but how did you actually really make sure you stayed out of danger in that sense?
I could have been killed at any moment. I wasn't trying to stay out of danger. And I say, we're all going to die sometime, and it's better to die for a cause you believe in than to get hit by a car when you're crossing the street with the light and in the crosswalk. Enough people get killed that way. So it's better to get killed for something you believe in.
Right. I will say, the movie the clip from the movie that we saw is called An Ordinary Hero. We just saw about 10-12 minutes. It's a 90-minute film. In that film, Joan goes through a couple of even hairier situations that she was in and talks about the fact that in Mississippi in 63, 64, there was a kill list put out by the Klan. Her picture was in it. So was John Salters, so was Ed King, so was Medgar Evers. And Joan says Medgar's, picture got X'd out. Hers never did. So
I figure since you didn't get killed, to honor those who were killed, you got to do a little bit extra.
And that's what you've been doing ever since we started telling your story. Now she's out everywhere. And I want to make sure that you can follow her story. Maybe we can go back to the PowerPoint just for a second. I'll share my screen again. And let you see. Let me get this out of here. So this is the other picture Nikki was talking about earlier, Joan's Freedom Rider portrait, we call it, when she got arrested, when she entered Jackson by train in the Freedom Rides.
That's my only mugshot.
It's her only mugshot. That's her, what do you call it? Your government ID, government approved
Well,
ID.
that's what my son is giving me T-shirts with the mugshot, and he says on it, "This is my government issued ID."
Joan
I think
was
that's
Joan was honored by the state legislature 2 years ago, both on the floor of the state senate, which is highly unusual for them to invite somebody onto the floor who's not an elected senator. So we were all down there with Barbara Favola, who was the state senator for Arlington. But also we were in the General Assembly as well later that afternoon and also got a proclamation. But this is the film, and just want everybody to know that that's available to see the other 75 minutes. This is Fred Blackwell, the person who took the photograph, the famous photograph. We wouldn't be here talking about this unless that photograph had been taken. And what we'd like to tell the story of, Fred never talked about his involvement that day. He refused to talk about it. And I just begged him, and eventually he cracked under pressure and told me his story and what he went through that day. As a photographer, he was a Southern Jackson born, young. He was 23 years old, just 1 year older than Joan. And he was the rookie photographer for the Jackson Daily News. And
and
he
he'd gone
spent
to
the
the same
entire
high school.
with some of the kids in the background. I interviewed some of the kids in the background too for the book. But
The one with the cigarette
yes,
lived 3 doors down the street from him.
right. So in any event, he endured that entire 3.5 hours or whatever it was. And he said in the beginning, when the kids started coming into the store and harassing the demonstrators, he was on the side of the kids. He was one of them. You know, he'd gone to school with some of their older siblings. He knew them all. And he was like, yeah, let's get these people out of here and get things back to normal. But as he watched for 3 hours, Joan and Annie and John, and there were, 6 or 7 other folks at the counter that day too, endure the harassment and the violence by his own community. Just as Gandhi predicted, his heart was changed in the moment while he's taking these photographs. And it changed to be on the side of the demonstrators because he said, if this is what it takes to maintain the Southern way of life, I don't want any part of it. And that is the power of nonviolence. And that is the message for the evening, that in order to change hearts, like the hearts we got to change now, we can't go out and get a gun. We gotta change hearts one at a time through our demonstration of love, as Nikki said, and in a nonviolent way, resist what's going on. It was a powerful message, and that's what we end the book with. So that, I think, except Gerson, I think you had a question. I'm sorry, I missed it. Do you want to?
I just put something in the chat. First of all, I want to thank Miss Joan and Mike for the fabulous job they did this evening. In my synagogue this morning, it's the most important sermon of the year is given on this day. It's the Jewish New Year. And my rabbi quoted Eleanor Roosevelt. And she said, most people tiptoe through life only to make it to death. And this is not what Joan Trumpauer did in the 1960s. It's not what the civil rights movement did. And when we say it was nonviolent, yes, it was nonviolent, but they also got in the face of power. And it was the overreaction of power. It was the reaction to this sit-in. It was what happened on the Pettus Bridge that really caused change. And so today, what I would say is that our words are really important. but without getting in the face of the powers that be, if we're not ready to take some risks, then we will not have good outcome. I'm sorry.
Thank you for that, Kirsten. And we're just so delighted to have been able to share Joan's story with you tonight. Thank you to Diane Rhodes, Diana, who asked for us to be here, who knew of Joan's story and wanted some inspiration in these difficult times. So I hope we gave some of that. Joan, any last words?
Get out there and cause some good trouble.
There we go. There we go.
You will.
Back to you, Miss Nikki.
You know, Mike, I just got on the phone with Miss Evelyn and I said, I asked Miss Evelyn, I know we're sold out for the gala, but Miss Joan, if you don't mind being being me and Mike's date for our upcoming Freedom Fund Gala, it will be an honor and a privilege.
Well, if I'm in town, I'd love to be there.
Thank you so much. And I'll talk with Mike and it's gonna be us, we're gonna be on a thrice date. You will be our date and our honored guest because we absolutely want to give you your birthday gift. We have to give you your birthday
Yes.
gift and your flowers while you're here. And we want to make sure that you get your flowers.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, with that being said, thank you all for attending our September's general membership meeting. Everybody throw up a heart for Ms. Joan.